The Minnesota Wild finding ways to lose here in 2023-2024. They did mount a 2-goal comeback in the third, but still lost an OT. Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Wild Postcast.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into yet another Locked On Wild Postcast as the Minnesota Wild fall 4-3 in overtime to the Toronto Maple Leafs, capping off a fun weekend of hockey for us. Maybe not as fun for the Minnesota Wild, but hey, we kept it on lock in the live streams. And so hope you had fun hanging out with us over the last couple of days. But again, this team just continues to do these types of same things that we've seen over the course of the first 16 games of the season. We saw a lot of it in game number 17 here as well. Wild did actually lead in this game 1-0 early on a goal from Jon Merrill, who clearly has been listening to the show for the last couple of weeks and wanted to try to make me look foolish with my opinions. He scores to make it 1-0, but then you get 3 straight goals from the Maple Leafs. And same sort of thing for this team is that they just turtle when the opponent scores. Once the Maple Leafs made it 1-1, they went into a shell, and the Maple Leafs were able to turn it into 2-1, 3-1. And it's a team that is playing with zero confidence right now. Now, in the third period, they did mount the 2-goal comeback, but in overtime, some opportunities that you couldn't cash in on, and Toronto Maple Leafs make the Wild pay and end up getting the game-winning goal to send the Wild to a 5th straight loss, 5-8-4 now on the season, which through 17 games is putrid. There are only a couple of teams that have gotten off to worse starts this season, and it was expected that they were going to. It was expected that those teams were going to be bad. Columbus was supposed to be bad this year. San Jose was supposed to be bad this year. Those are the only teams with fewer wins to this point in the season than the Minnesota Wild have right now, and we continue to hear the same chorus from Dean, from the players, is that they just have to believe that it's going to improve. You got to go bigger than that. You have to demand that these types of things are going to improve in order to get better play. Matt Boldy, I thought, looked better over these last 2 games. And so that is, I think, hopefully an encouraging sign that he's starting to work out of the early season funk that he's been in. But we were celebrating in the live stream the fact that Kirill Kaprizov had 3 shots on ice, 3 shots on net. We were celebrating after a 1-shot on goal performance against Ottawa yesterday. And that kind of thing, as that continues to happen, I thought Dean hit on another area that has been a problem for this team, is just completely unable to hit open nets, good opportunities in good position for what should be goals and what is for other teams, it seems, are opportunities that the Wild are not able to close on right now. And it's some of it, I think, is, maybe a teeny tiny percentage is just some bad luck at this point. But I think it just is the fact that this team does not seem to practice a ton. They seem to just kind of go into games expecting that things are going to change and are going to improve. You have to demand it. You have to demand it as a coaching staff that this team pick up their play, particular players in many cases pick up their play, And so far to this point, we have not gotten that. And you leave one on the table to the Toronto Maple Leafs, in which there were plenty of opportunities to pick this one up. The Maple Leafs left a ton of opportunities on the table that the Wild, if they could have capitalized on, could likely have won this game in regulation. But that's not the first time that has happened this season. The Buffalo game, I think, is the most egregious instance of this team just leaving a game on the ice. An instance in which you just thoroughly outshoot the Buffalo Sabres. You can't hit the net, and you end up coming away with a loss. This team is like the Calgary Flames last year, finding ways to lose here in 2023, 2024, whereas last year, it seemed like once things got going, the Wild were finding ways to win. 2021, 2022, they were finding ways to win. This year, they're finding ways to lose. And it's frustrating because, again, as we have touched on a ton, what do you do to fix it? You've got a ton of this team locked in for multiple seasons. And there just are limited options that you're going to be able to use at your disposal to fix it. And yes, we knew again that this was going to be a tough season with the money that they are not able to spend. But like it looks kind of it just looks like a lot of the guys on this team have no answer as to how to fix this. And so you can't you can't expect the players to take it on themselves to fix it. You as a coach have to like coach for your job. Coach like your job depends on it, and just demand a different standard than what we have seen so far this season. And I don't know if Dean's that guy. I don't know if that coach is on this roster, is part of this team right now, but that's what this team needs. It's a bunch of veterans that are just kind of playing just to be here. You got to hold them accountable for their performances, because Kaprizov to this point has not been close to what you need from him. You've got to figure out first and foremost what's going on there. But we see it from the younger players on this team. Marco Rossi playing hard every night. Brock Faber playing hard every night. I know Matt Boldy went through a little bit of a dry spell, but the last two games, after hearing his name discussed over and over and over on podcasts, on other things, on Twitter, on different social media platforms, he's picked up his game. The young players are the ones that are leading the way at this point. But you have to get the vets to match it. You have to get the vets to match that level of intensity, that level of game in, game out. Your fourth line should not be one of the lines on a nightly basis that works the hardest. You're not built to just coast through games and just win. That's not anywhere near how this team is built. And so, yes, there were signs of improvement to take from these two games, but it's concerning to me that 17 games into the season, the continued common refrain for this team is it'll get better. Like, let's demand that it does, because it's not going to get any easier. Colorado coming up on Friday. Colorado's a very good team. They're capable of making games look ugly, but they also are capable of kind of playing down to their competition to where they leave you opportunities to win. And if you don't take them, you're not going to win games. And so frustrating again. In the grand scheme of things, getting 2 points off the trip is, as I think, what was expected. But the way that it happened, I think, is the disappointing part. You should have beaten Ottawa. And so to kind of hang on for dear life for a point there, and to see a comeback come up short against Toronto, with many, many minutes of uninspiring play sprinkled in. There's no other way to describe it, I think, other than disappointment for these two games. And, anybody that's listened to this show, negative is not usually the approach that I take. I think I've been very forthright in that we are trying to, take the optimistic approach a lot of times and not just stew in the negativity, but like point out to me the areas beyond Marco Rossi and Brock Faber. Like, point out to me the spots in which you can hang your hat on for this team. Penalty kill gave up 1 power play goal in the 2 games. Awesome. Guess what? The power play didn't score in either. I don't know. I can't really pull out of the negative area until the play improves. And what do you see? What do you see about this that is going to improve? So we're going to get to the comments. We've got a bunch of comments already here. We've got the Soda Pod is here. Isha joining us. Salute you, Isha, for hopping in. We've got Mike. We've got Quadrum here, all ready to rock. So we'll go through the comments as we continue today's Locked On Wild postcast. But first, we are going to bring you today's sponsor for this Locked On Wild postcast. We'll continue our conversation. The Minnesota Wild lose 4-3 in overtime. Our Locked On Wild postcast will continue after this. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Today's Locked On Wild postcast is also brought to you by Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities, whether it be Marco Rossi scoring a goal, maybe getting to the 30-goal plateau this season, or the Minnesota Wild someday, some way, hoisting the Stanley Cup. You could be a big winner by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, or Alex Ovechkin will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. Entries are so easy, they can be made in under 60 seconds. And you can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, or college football. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Minnesota Wild fall 4-3 in overtime. We are taking your comments here on today's Locked On Wild postcast and moving into the comments here for the second half. Jeremy says, I'll take the 2 points. It should have been 3 or 4. Again, I think that's why yesterday's game was so frustrating, is you really just left one on the table for the Ottawa Senators to just freely take from you. And so you should have won that game. And honestly, you should have won this one. And you come away with 2 points. And I think that's what makes it most disappointing. Reality of the situation, I think we expected a win yesterday and a loss today. So 2 points out of 4 is better than what has currently been happening with this team, but the way in which both games happened is disappointing to say the least. Jay Sullivan, I didn't bother waking up for it, but the special teams and goalie stats are once again just terrible. Hope we get a top five pick if I could talk and sell at the deadline, but likely that we will not. Again, it comes down to whether Bill Guerin is willing to admit that that it ain't working, and until he is, and this is where I think Craig Leopold kind of comes into the equation a little bit as well. It may require your owner saying you got to do something because this is not a formula that is working, and we're not just going to continue to bang our heads into the wall for as many games as has already happened so far this season. But then again, look, 17 games in, and you can pick like 3 or 4 different things that continuously go wrong for this team on a game by game basis. Quadrum appreciates the stream, helped take some of the sour taste out of our mouths with having somebody to share it with. That's why I do it. Is we're trying to make this as fun as possible, even though this season has been a drag so far. So appreciate you hopping in and joining us for both games. And like I said, we'll do more of those as the season unfolds, especially for the road games. We'll get things back in to some games soon for another live stream. Jeremy, is the special teams partially the fault of the Iowa Wild basically using up a good assistant coach who actually had a decent power play and penalty kill system working? Well, that was, I think, part of the issue, on the power play side is that it has just taken some time for the team to adjust to the Jason King system. But again, this was pointed out by Denny in the live stream. I feel like they're doing this backwards. Like you are saying, okay, this is our system, and we're either going to succeed by players understanding our system, or we're going to fail by our system. Like, look at the skills that you have on the team and try to develop a system around them. This is what got Mike Zimmer fired by the Vikings, is that he continued to play his system when it was very clear that it wasn't working. And I think the better coaches in the NHL put things in place that maximize the talent of their key guys. And this is just not a team that is doing it. It's not doing it right now. They're just continuing to try to win with this system that is just proving time and time again to not be successful. MW Auto, I'm so extremely disappointed in this team right now. There's no excuse to play this poorly right now. The Leafs gave them every chance to win. Ottawa too. Both games, there were opportunities on the table to win both games, and you lose both. It's frustrating, especially when, as Mike points out, when the effort doesn't match the talent. That's, I think, one of the biggest things that has led to this team not looking up to par is that it just feels like guys are kind of going through the motions out there. And key guys, not like your third or fourth line guys, key guys are going through stretches of just not looking like they are factoring into the equation at all. And so that just is incredibly frustrating for this team. One solution might be to increase the minutes of the fourth line because all 4 lines have to play hard in order to be competitive. Duhaime's speed has a positive impact. Gary, I'm with you on this 100%. Is now with Maroon being a fourth line guy, and how about Freddie Gaudreau getting back into the lineup and being on the ice for 3 of the 4 goals that Toronto scored, and being thrust into a second line role the moment he comes back. I would be all for giving the fourth line some more opportunities, because your fourth line, they may not be as skilled as some of the other lines on the team, but they're definitely going to work hard. And that is sorely missing at various points on this team. Mike missing the net and can't capitalize on the power play. Penalty kill looked better. It did look better. And it's going to be all about moderation with the Wild with that penalty kill. There comes a fine point in which the penalties that they take is just too much. And, we see that quite often. This is a team that's penalized a lot. And so that penalty kill gets plenty of time to maybe succeed, maybe not. Zach just landed. His flight ironically started like as the stream was going on. And so he just landed. And yeah, UG is a perfect way to describe it. Gary pointing out there's 65 games left to make up 6 to 8 points. It's going to be a hard climb, especially if this stuff continues to happen. It's not going to make the road any easier. Guerin has gone from an odd but effective GM into Kyle Dubas light. He loves his guys, and it's not going to change without something coming down from ownership. That's why I don't think we're going to see Dean let go anytime soon, because any sort of move along that line would be in admission of guilt that the formula is not working, and so they're just going to continue to try to get things going. But at some point, you just are what you are. I know how much Isha dislikes the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so him to say this, hate them so much, it's true. And Toronto is a very interesting team that just continues to get to the playoffs and not any further. Jimmy's Adventures, fire sale. Oh wait, all those no movement clauses. Yeah, again, there's not a lot that can be fixed with this group here at this point. Keith does bring up a good point. I'm encouraged the Wild didn't give up when they were down by 2. Hopefully they can build off that. We did see some better play in these 2 games. I'm not trying to discount that really at all. But again, it goes back to just finding ways to lose games. Tyson in to point this out. The Wild have 14 points in 17 games. Last season, the second wild card spot had 95 points. For the Wild to get to 95 points this season, they need 81 points in the next 65 games. So you essentially need to win 40 of those games. That is or just get to overtime in all of the next 65 games. Get to overtime in every single one of them and win 30 of them. It's going to be a tough climb for this team. And especially because, as Michael points out, the Avs are up next. And guess what? We haven't played hardly any of the Central Division teams yet. We've barely played anybody in the Western Conference. We've got Winnipeg coming up a couple of times, Colorado coming up. We got Boston coming up in December. This is not showing any real signs of, because you can play better, but the quality of opponent is a lot better too. And so it leads to these kind of double-edged swords of hey, we're playing better, but we're still getting caved because we're playing higher qualities of teams. Now I wanted to read this, so I'm scrolling on Twitter as well. Dean Evison said Kaprizov is frustrated he's not scoring, but praised how he's handled it. It'd be easy for him to be pouting and negative and woe is me and sulking. He's not. He's working and he's trying to get out of it, which he will. That's quite the statement after yet another scoreless game by your top player. So then at what point does that become a major point of contention too? Is that his current deal is going to come, the bill's going to come due for that. he would be in line for an extension, but can you justify giving a guy an extension when he's playing like this? And he's not this bad. We hope. He's not this bad. He may not be as good as he was a couple of seasons ago, but you have to find a way to get back closer to that as opposed to just continuing to just crawl around on the floor. And it's clearly not a hole that this team can dig itself out of without having him be an impact player. And so the fact that we're this far into the season and everybody just has no idea what's going on, it's not good. It's not good. Mike, I'm with you on this too. Glad to have Freddie back, but honestly, second line, I did not think that was a good choice. And, you've got Hartman, who is now playing wing with Gaudreau back. Honestly, you could probably interchange them. I think I don't know. That's just another thing to add to the list of problems for this team. It just is a never-ending cycle of agony and pain, as Mike notes. The record doesn't reflect the agony that is to be our record soon. So much pain. Jay Sullivan also figured if we do well against the West in our division, we might sneak some wins in there. Then we get blown up by Dallas. So never mind. Yeah, Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg is another team that is playing well so far this season that the Wild will play a couple of times coming up. The road does not get any easier for this team. I hope this isn't a Matt Dumba situation where an injury or a fight seriously changed his playing to an insane degree. And this is why I'm kind of gravitating towards the mentally Kaprizov just doesn't trust his body to be able to do the same things anymore, which has led to a lack of confidence, which has led to him trying to find other teammates that are open for shots as opposed to simply taking the shots himself. I wonder if that's part of it because, you fall in an awkward manner, and if it's an injury that's painful enough, you don't want to have that happen again. So you start to shy away from contact. You avoid mixing it up in the dirty areas. It is something that has affected him in a substantial amount to where it does not look anything close to what he has been over the last couple of seasons. And it has to change in a quick manner. Like, it's starting to really push beyond a slow start. Like, he clearly is impacted by something that has led to him not being a factor in any of these games. So goals today, we got goals from Jake Middleton, Jon Merrill, and Mats Zuccarello. We're to the point now where it seems like the defensemen are scoring most of the goals for this team, as opposed to the forward groups, which is concerning as well. It's funny how frustrated we get with Dean, but how spot on with things he is after the games. Like, again, talking about players having wide open net opportunities and just straight up missing the net. It's become a huge problem with this team. If it's puck luck, that's one thing, but it looks kind of like a lack of skill on many of these. So at the end of the day, it just is finding another way to lose a game, which is just infinitely frustrated. Oh, Denny made it on to Wild Fan Line. That's amazing. How do you think Spurgeon has played since he came back? It's interesting because I think Spurgeon he's looked okay since he came back into the lineup. I think there just was this assumption that when he came back in, that the defense was going to shore up, that the special teams were all going to magically get fixed. He shouldn't be having to run the top power play. Like it just continues to not work. And power play is tricky because you can have power plays that look really good where you just don't score. And throughout the weekend, I thought for the most part, the power play has actually done a good job of generating chances. They just cannot find the net. And so statistically, you look at it and it's the power play has not performed nearly to the level that it needs to. But, at least they're getting chances and getting opportunities. But I think ultimately Brock Faber is probably the best choice because, again, he's a young player. He plays hard. He is not afraid to drive the net on his own. And I think you just see so many vets on this team just kind of standing around going through the motions. So I think Spurgeon's been okay since he returned. Short answer to a followed by a longer answer. But there just are so many, like, you could slot him in probably outside the top 10 in terms of issues with this team right now. Of him not being like, dominant or anything. And it'll take him a few games to get to that point again. But, there just are so many things that just are far and away bigger issues for this team than what we're currently seeing. All right. So I think we're going to wrap it up. That is going to cap an incredibly fun-filled weekend of hockey coverage here at Locked On Wild. Unfortunately, weren't able to get a win in either of the live streams, but I can't say enough how much I appreciate everybody hopping in and tuning into the live streams, tuning into the postcasts, continuing to follow Locked On Wild throughout the week. Win, lose, or tie, or shootout loss. We continue to just try to find ways to fix this team. And so if it's not fun right now, it'll get fun at some point. And just appreciative of everybody that has tuned in and has made Locked On Wild part of their listening plans throughout the course of the week and throughout the rest of the season. I will be back at XL Energy Center for the Friday matchup against the Colorado Avalanche. Until then, we'll work in a couple of things throughout the week here with Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday. So make sure to tune in starting tomorrow. We'll have Alex on tonight to discuss the weekends and how we get this back on track. So again, appreciate everybody who joined us here this weekend. So much fun. We'll do it again. But for now, make sure that you check out all the content that we have available on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platforms. Locked On Wild has you covered for all games throughout the course of the season, as well as pre and post game as well. So make sure to tune in for our brand new episode come tomorrow as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.